Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Redesigning Lives. I have with me Miss Sumithra Sarath Kumar. She is having 18 plus years of experience as a counselor and a coach, trained multiple people of various age groups, starting from young adults, women, parenting as a parenting coach. So, welcome Sumithra to the show.
Thank you, Saraswati.
How Sumithra chose to be a coach and a counselor?
Oh, well, okay. That was many years ago, actually. So I've always been very interested in trying to understand people and read people, like even as a teenager. My hobby reading used to be psychology, pop books, and all that. So I think that was an innate interest. But in terms of doing an actual course or qualification in it, only happened much later in life. I did a master's in psychology, and you get a lot of theory. But when you're sitting with a person who is having an issue, the textbooks don't tell you what you should do or should not do. So I wanted to get the actual skills training so that you're actually useful to a person who may need it. And that's the intention with which I started. But the biggest benefit has been that I have learned a lot about myself.
Lovely. As you said, like experiences teach us much, much, much better way than textbooks, right? So yeah, absolutely. So what are the key challenges that you have seen in your client, like as a woman particularly? If we take the age between 25 to 40, where a lot of changes go on in life.
Looking at that age group, 25 to 40, it's a very tumultuous period because it's so full of transitions. Like you go from being a carefree student to a working professional. So that's one transition that happens. Then you go from being a daughter to maybe a girlfriend or a partner to somebody. So that's another transition because those are new relationships you're exploring, right?
Absolutely.
And then you go from being a single person responsible for yourself basically to becoming a couple. And that's challenging enough. And then you go from couple to becoming parent. Whichever level you are, it's a transition because you bring in some stuff that you learned from the previous roles or previous period in your life, but there's a lot of new challenges for which you have to learn on the go. There is no rule book, there is no guidebook. So basically, you're kind of in some parts of your life, you're just winging it and seeing what works and what doesn't work. So it requires a lot of inner stability, I feel, this period, because it's so many transitions. I can look back in my life and say, like, I don't know what I was thinking at that age, and I don't know how I process things. Sometimes I'm amazed at the courage that I showed. Sometimes I just think I was absolutely stupid. But that's the benefit of hindsight. You look back at yourself. In that moment, you don't know, right? So you've got to really be willing to be adaptable, because that's key. Everything is changing so fast and there's only that much you know.
Right. So absolutely, like if I say it's like some days we are bold and courageous and some days we are so messy. We feel like, what are we doing?
Exactly.
So absolutely, I can completely correlate to that kind of feeling. But one question comes to my mind here. When we are going through a lot of transitions in this age group, we have seen some people go really like they just nail it as if they know everything, and some people really struggle. So what is that thing that makes some people tackle this situation so well, and some people struggle in it?
Actually, a very good question. For the most part, I think people who are nailing it themselves don't know why they're nailing it.
Okay.
Because I don't think there is a formula for nailing it. A lot of it comes from your own, your own core inner self. So what are the beliefs that you hold and the kind of maybe in your developmental stage, the kind of environment you had and how much of confidence it gave you or risk-taking ability it gave you. And also the freedom to fail. if your early growth period allowed you to try and fail and not be judged for it, you're far less inhibited to go and do something new, because
Right.
failing is not such a big thing. But again, these things are not something that people, even as parents, that you remember or you know to give your child. It's just that sometimes those messages get through right and strong into the minds. And then it becomes a little bit easier because they are not so full of self-criticism or self-judgment. And that might make things easier. But I don't think they themselves know that unless they actually sit and analyze, who am I and what am I doing, So I think, but again, this is a learnable skill. So even if you didn't have it in the childhood, but many of us don't, especially in Indian parenting, it's a little different, and we have so much of social conditioning that happens. So we may not get all the right messages simply because even our parents don't know what the right messages are. But you can always decide to work on yourself. And people who end up doing that actually know then why they are able to do something and why they're not able to do something. So it's no longer fluke. Because you're actually working on yourself and saying, this is my belief and this is what is limiting me, and now I'm going to find a way to replace it with something that empowers me. So you are choosing a journey as opposed to just winging it. And I think that's far more powerful.
Exactly. So it's always better to learn from the experiences that we had, right? Instead of like, even if we are failing, but it's the most important thing is we should learn the lessons.
Yeah.
And then
there is no formula for success without failure.
Absolutely. What are the common misconceptions that you see in women to attract the life they want?
I think women are can be very hard on themselves. They have this expectation that they have to be perfect at every role they're playing. And I don't think that is humanly possible. I don't think many men will keep thinking about, I have to be a perfect, son, boyfriend, husband, employee, boss, father. I don't think there are so many boxes that they tick. They may look at each box when there is an issue or when there is an upheaval somewhere. But I think women are constantly like, if you are doing well in one role, then you're thinking, okay, I'm good as a mother, but I'm not looking as good as I should. And then I'm looking good, then I'm not performing as good. I mean, there's so many levels that they want to be excellent at, and that puts a lot of pressure. It puts a lot of pressure. This makes it humanly impossible. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying it's being perfect in your imperfection.
Yes.
That
embracing your imperfections and knowing that they work for you.
I can absolutely understand here, because when the working mom, they go to their home back and they feel guilty of the fact that they are not able to do the best they can for their children. So this is something which was very common till some time back, but now I think women are adapting to this thing, that it is absolutely fine to be managing their household and kid and not being able to give lot of time to their kids, but spending quality time with them.
Yeah, some conditioning that comes in society about how you should be in these roles, kind of mother you are judging yourself.
Correct.
And I think if women are learning to let go of that, they'll probably enjoy the journey of king, or whether it is parenting.
I think this is the need of the hour, because lot of people are having, or a lot of women rather, they're having that guilt feeling, whether they are not able to give time to their kids or to their family, or if they are looking up to their aspiration. But apart from that, there is something else as well that hinders their growth. It is something they feel like, if they're looking up to their aspiration or they are aspiring for something higher, they are becoming self-centered or selfish.
I think a lot of that comes out of the conditioning. Like you're supposed to be, see, there's a certain part of us as women, I feel we're wired to be nurturers. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you are wired a little bit more that way than the average man, because I think your biology, your physiology, everything supports a certain role of nurturing. But I think it's important not to turn our backs on that, because that is also what is required in a society or in a family. But women can
Mm-hmm.
are equally adept at being trailblazers and icons and setting trends, which are going into areas where other people have never ever ventured before. And there's nothing that
Mm-hmm.
should or must stop them because they are nurturers or because they're mothers or any other form of caretaking that they do. It should not
Mm-hmm.
remove from their own space the possibility of being
Mm-hmm.
something else. Just because you are a nurturer doesn't mean you can't be other things. And I think the other thing that I feel, especially in this thing, is when you want to have it all, and you want to have it
Mm-hmm.
all now, and you want to have
Mm-hmm.
it all the time, it becomes little impractical in life. So life is ebbs and flows. There may be a certain time that you will put your career a little bit on a back burner because you're new into motherhood. But when
Right.
you're a little bit more settled in that role, you can put the motherhood on the back burner and go back to your career. So there's that kind of flow that happens. And I think if
So
you are
prioritizing the.
yeah, if you're more in tune with what is needed in the hour for you to do, like prioritize what is most important, and allow yourself to do that without judging yourself or blaming yourself, then I think it is, you will find the possibilities opening up for every role that you're playing, whether it is of a professional or whether it is of a caretaker or anything else that you may want to do. No, a free spirit, adventurer,
Yeah.
traveler, you can be it all, but not all the time.
Exactly. Nothing exists like as we say work-life balance. So it's all about balancing what is in your plate right now, rather than perfectly balancing all the things at a time.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that puts a lot of pressure, and it's not possible, but we want to do it that way because we think that's the best version of ourselves. But the best version of ourselves, who wants to do 10 different roles simultaneously to perfection, is going to be a very burnt out, miserable person, and that can't be best, right? So you
And what
have
we have, we can give that to others. So if we are burnt out, if we are low in energy, then even though we are giving our 100% to the people around us, um, doing like stuff for them, but we are not physically, mentally, emotionally available, then that doesn't make any sense, right?
yeah. And for women, especially, for everybody, I would say, but for women, especially, I think self care routines and learning to set boundaries are very important, because if you don't take care of yourself, then you're running on
Mhm.
empty. There's not much you left in you to give others. And if you don't set boundaries and you don't know when to say yes and when to say no, keeping your interests,
Mhm.
also balancing your interests along with the interests of the other things that you have to handle in life, then what happens is you just end up feeling like you're taken for granted. And then a
Correct.
lot of resentment builds up. And then again, you're not in a space where you can perform the way you want to.
Mhm.
So
Right. At office, at home, how do we set boundaries?
don't fall into the trap of guilt and blame that others are piling on you. So, when I want to set a boundary, obviously it's not because I want to shirk work or I don't want to do my job or whatever it is. If i'm
Mhm.
if i'm that kind of a person, then it's a different connotation. But for most of us who want to do a good job of everything that we are doing, then what happens is subtly there may be people in your environment or in your own conditioning from the past that makes you feel that it is not enough. What you've done is not enough. So you're
Mhm.
always expected to do more than what you can. And so there's a certain constant guilt in you that you've not done enough, even when you've done everything that you can. And I think recognizing that voice of guilt, that where you're guilting yourself into something or blaming yourself, and when you're blaming yourself far enough, you might get a little bit on the aggressive side and start blaming others. But even that is not healthy. So that trap of blame and guilt are two things that can really mess with how we view ourselves and our own capacity to do something. And therefore, we don't know how to set boundaries because we're feeling so guilty we can't say no. And people in your environment can pick on that energy, that you can be pushed around because you yourself are not sure if you've done everything that you can. And that little window that's open where you're feeling guilty allows others to take advantage of you because you are leaving that open there.
Right.
So it helps actually if you look at what your thoughts are and what you're feeling at least once in the day, whether you do it in the morning or in the night, it doesn't matter. But what was my predominant thought or feeling about myself today? And that'll give you some clues about how much of guilting and how much of blaming you're doing. And I think when you start observing that, you'll realize you're not really your best friend. Because you are actually in some ways sabotaging your own self by these very powerful guilt and blame games that we play. And I think when you start realizing that, you'll be able to, at least I've realized that for me and for a lot of clients I worked with, just being aware of when these programs are running automatically, it helps.
You mentioned a lot of things here, but any practical way how they can implement it? Mostly, let's say we have in our house someone who is always nagging or always pushing us to the extreme. In those situations, how do we set boundaries?
I think the first part of the journey is working within yourself to make sure that you are clear about why you're doing what you're doing. So another person's opinion does not hijack your own thinking about yourself. So I think spending a little time to get that clarity, okay, I'm doing this now because this is important for me. And the other person saying something is an external factor. Just differentiating the two helps. So you have some clarity to focus on. And then it is in my experience, it is a new habit that you have to form, where you say, I'm not taking on the blame that you want to give me, like I'm rejecting it. So somebody is nagging you for not doing something, and it is a trivial thing, it's their habit to nag, not an important thing that you have to attend to. Then I think developing that thing that says that is her drama or his drama. I'm not the one who's going to play a role there. So some people just feel happy when they're nagging, and that is the way they are. So they may not even expect anything from you, accepting an opportunity to nag. And that's their story. But your response to the nagging is your story.
Absolutely.
And I think that helps to say, so let's say someone is nagging me, before I give in to their demands, it's good for me to ask myself, where is my response coming from? Am I doing this to keep peace? Am I doing it to avoid confrontation? Am I doing it because I can't bear to hear this person talk anymore? Why am I giving away my power? I think asking these questions will give you a clue as to where you're coming from.
Right. It's a very bold statement that you made, giving away our power.
Yes.
That is what we unknowingly do the entire day. Right. So
yeah, we do. And we will continue to do it. But when you're aware of it, you can kind of course correct. There's never that perfect thing that I am today in that space where I never give my power away, because that doesn't happen. We are, after all, interdependent, so that, energy exchange between people or whatever, it happens. But I think just be aware of it and say, oh, okay, I'm getting triggered here, I'm getting pulled here, that
Then stop.
helps you to pause and reflect. And it's always about where am I coming from, not what the other person is doing, because they can do anything. It's your response that is determining your life.
Right. Beautiful. And when we were talking about these energies, so there are two energies that is within all of us. One is masculine energy, one is feminine energy. So how do we balance between the two? Because with lots of responsibilities in women, somewhere we are seeing that masculine energy is coming up and feminine energy, like masculine energy is dominating the feminine energy. So what would you say on this, and how can we have a balance?
Yeah, that's a very powerful question to ask in today's times, because I think there's a shift happening. For the longest time, maybe for the past couple of 100 years, it has been the men who have the patriarchal system, and the men who have been kind of laying the foundation of what is called successful and what is not, and everything else. The society rules and conditioning has all come mainly from a male perspective. But I think as more and more women have come into workspace, and we are beginning to value the special benefit that comes from somebody who's creative, a special benefit that comes from somebody who is nurturing things, which I'm not saying men can't be that, but I think for women it's like you said, it's part of the feminine energy, that it is much more anchored in us than in them. And if we are able to bring about a society where both, there is this rational, very, very analytical, logical force, and then there is the flowing, creative, spontaneous force. And there is a time and place for both. And if you ask me, I think all human beings, men and women, have both these energies in them. But what happens is we've somehow understood that analytical, logical, rational, and determined is the way to success.
Right.
And that may be the way to success, but for anything to be successful, any new industry that you take, it starts with a spark of creativity. Somebody somewhere was creative to come up with anything that we value today, right? Whether it is you're in IT, so whether it is your Apple phones or whether it's your Microsoft, or somebody somewhere thought of something that was beyond what was existing in their reality. And that creativity, without that, any amount of logical, rational force will only get you that far. So I think it's important for women to realize that, yes, you need some of those corporate qualities if you're living in a corporate job, but no corporate would exist if somebody didn't have that spark of spontaneous creativity somewhere, and that is very much in your right brain. So actually doing activities which can enhance that part of your brain is a very good thing for everybody, but more so for women who are now getting confused about how they should be if they want to succeed. You can create new definitions of success, and that part of your brain is a very good thing for everybody, but more so for women who are now getting confused about how they should be if they want to succeed. You can create new definitions of success which are more suitable and more holistic. And I think this is the best time to do that, because the world has never been this open to adapting as it is today.
I have come across a lot of women who actually do not know what is enough for them. They are in toxic relationship, they are in abusive relationship. Some women cannot move out because of social norms. And we were talking about setting boundaries. They say we had set boundaries, we know what is wrong, what is right, but somehow we kept accommodating. In your experience, what can those women do to know when it is enough and they should not go beyond those boundaries?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but again, each story is different. So obviously, for each woman, that decision might come at a point which one cannot have a universal formula for it. But there are some red flags that in my experience, have found lead to that point where women have to take the call: is this working for me, or do I need to leave this relationship? And some of the common red flags are, first, when there is no respect. Okay. Mutual respect between partners, even if you're very different and even if you disagree on many things, has to be there if you want the family unit to be stable.
Right.
And so that's one thing I would say, like, ask yourself whether you're being respected. Ask yourself if you're able to respect your spouse, because sometimes you may not say anything, but in your mind, you just don't respect the person anymore. And that lack of respect can go very deep and have very far reaching effects. So I would say check that. The other thing I would say is that if you are not valued as a person, but only for the role you're playing. So say you're a homemaker, and the only reason that you have any value is because you're cooking and cleaning and looking after the kids and all that. Or if you're a man, the only reason you're valued is because of the paycheck you're paying.
Right.
So the role you're playing is more important than you. Then I would say pause and think deeply if this relationship is going the way you want it to go. These are some things which I feel that are red flags. It's not that every time if you notice that's happening that you have to end the relationship. I'm not saying that, but it is time to pause and ponder and maybe work on yourself or work on a couple therapy, whatever it is, to see where are we going off course. Because love, chemistry, these things, if you look at a marriage that is going to last 50 years, it'll come and go in different stages. But respect and value for the person that you are need to be somewhat stable if you want the relationship to be healthy.
So beautifully said.
If you have some humor and if you have that kind of a wavelength match, then it's much easier. But even if you're two very different personalities, I think having these two makes it a little bit better.
These are the foundations of the relationship, you can say.
In my experience, the ones that didn't work because these things were missing more than anything else. All the other things, job, I don't want to work, I want to work, all these are situational and can be handled.
I completely agree with you. Any advice that you would like to give to all the women out here so that they can tap into their own potential, be fearless and confident?
In my experience, at least, I would say that don't stop working on yourself. Whatever you are now, and whatever you want to become, there is a path, there is a journey to it. So whatever the situation you are in, you work on yourself, the situation will change. So if you find something in yourself that you like, enhance it. If you find something in yourself that you feel is not working for you, then find ways to address it. But keep working on yourself, because anything else may come and go in your life, but you are going to be with yourself all your life. So be your best friend.
Beautiful tips. Thank you so much, Sumithra, for being here and sharing your wisdom and knowledge with all of us. It was lovely talking to you.
Thank you for this opportunity, Saraswati, and I hope it helps whoever is listening to your beautiful show in whatever small or big way. If it's making a difference to someone's life, then that's all we are here for, aren't we?
Absolutely. That is what this talk show is all about, for reaching out to maximum people and helping in any way they can get help from all of us.